Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to another World of Warcraft video, and today's video is going to be another post commentary. This one is about my first mythic dungeon in the Battle for Azeroth, which was the Temple of Sethraliss. So the first boss, I didn't record that one. I wasn't really sure how things were going to work out since this was my very first time in Mythic, but I do feel like that boss is not too difficult. If your entire gear is geared up for Mythics, I think you can handle him without too much trouble. Now, before the second boss, I think that this should be a picture that you recognize. You've got three mobs that are pretty annoying because they tend to heal each other. And we were actually only with 3 people from the guild. And then 2 randoms that we grabbed up, and you either need to really interrupt those heals because they'll heal each other as well, which means that you need to be coordinated, or what you can try is to, for instance, sheep or hex one, take care of hex the other one as well, and then just, you know, deal with them one by one, which is going to be a much less time-consuming way of dealing with these mobs than what we did. As you can tell here, this was quite a bit of a struggle. And basically a real mistake. We actually wanted the rogue to sap one, and then that we would only have to handle 2, but 3 of them have so much healing power that it took absolutely everything we got in order to blast one down. Of course, once that is done, the other ones are easier to interrupt, and then you can defeat those guys without too much trouble. So this is basically a tiny hurdle that you have to take before you go on the second boss, and yeah, a little bit of crowd control does make that easier. And I think that you know, especially if you want to do this efficiently, then do it like that. Or if you're not completely coordinated the way we were here, then definitely make sure that you either like poly or hex one, and take only 2, or even preferably 1 at the time. Next up, we'll take a look at Merekath, who is the snake boss and the second boss of this dungeon. She's pretty doable, but you need to be aware of one very important mechanic, and that is that from time to time she'll trap someone in a massive stun, and it's right there, the knot of snakes. And what helps most is to do a stun. A single stun is going to completely take care of that knot of snakes. Of course, stay out of the green stuff, which is what we're doing right here. That noxious breath does keep spreading that out. And preferably, again, with a more coordinated team than what we had here, you could all move towards the same side and things like that. Snake will disappear, summon about 5 adds. The first ones are pretty easy because they don't drop sort of a smoke bomb that makes them almost immune to damage, so just AoE those down as quickly as possible. Try to regain your positioning and be aware of the snake that'll bump people out and do a little bit of damage as he tries to go back, and will surface then at some point. So there we go, that is Merekath. After the first adds, here she'll do a blinding sand, and you have to look away the way I did right there in order not to be dazed for a couple of seconds. Very important to do that. I think 4 or 5 seconds of being out is not a good idea. I should also add that this was our second attempt. On the first one I got dazed 3 times, basically cost us lots of DPS, lots of time. And so that was a bit of a problem. Now on the left side of those snakes you can see the smoke, so you need to give the tanks the time to, or the tank the time to pull the snakes out of there, and try not to slow them, because that is actually what you don't want to do against these mobs. It always looks like, okay, that's pretty good, let's maybe put down a slowing down totem or something like that, but you don't want to do that, because that just means that if they drop one of those smoke bombs, it'll just last that much longer. I'm calling them smoke bombs, I'm not exactly sure what the ability is called, but yeah, keep those guys mobile and let your tank do his job while you AoE them down. After that, of course, we get the same thing again. Stay out of the green stuff. Noxious breath, he'll do that several times. Do as much DPS as possible. And with the knots, very important, right? You've got a stun totem, but also as a Tauren, you've got War Stomp, so definitely a little bit of an advantage of being a Tauren in this dungeon here for Knot of Snakes, I think it's called. And then eventually he will go down with just a couple percentage. He summons adds again, but we do take him down. Phew. Was a pretty decently difficult fight. But luckily, we had done this guy several times on a heroic before coming here, so we were aware of his mechanics. Next for the bosses, after a little bit of annoying traveling with some weird lightning orbs that keep annoying you, we come up to Galvatzz, who is, well, definitely a rather annoying boss as well. It took us, I think, 4 tries to finally get it right on this try, and basically the tactic that we're using here is to tank the boss in one corner and then try to surround that area, but also stay close enough to them in order to very quickly and very easily take on the lightnings that come from these pylons that you see spawning. That was to my right, and that is now at the back of me. It's very important that you don't allow Galvatzz to get too many stacks, and that you also don't take too many yourself, or don't force your tank to take too many yourself, because then his AoE is going to do massive amounts of damage. What worked the best for us is this tactic that you're seeing here. Pull him in one corner, place yourselves in a half circle around him, but don't go too far. Try to limit your travel time, as you can see here, when another pylon pops up. And then what does help, I think, from time to time is to switch around so that you give people the opportunity to lose their stacks. What you saw there is the AoE that generally kills you. It's actually over the entire area where you can fight the boss. We tried getting far away from him and things like that as well. That just didn't work, and I'm not exactly sure if that's how it works, but it looked to me, or it felt to me, like being closer to the boss meant that I took less damage than when I was further away from the boss. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but yeah, just staying really close to the tank and the boss himself, so that I need to do as little traveling as possible to grab the lightnings and keep them from reaching them, seemed to work really well. And it felt like we were quite in control of this final fight where we took him out. But this was our 4th or 5th try on this boss. Not easy, definitely something that needs some practice, and I got a nice ring out of that. And then finally we come to the final boss of this instant. Now with the mobs running up to him, take your time to take all of them out in small chunks, because there are some sort of keepers that do an enormous amount of damage. It's best to do those one at a time. After that, this is what you encounter. You've got the boss surrounded by 4 mobs. You have to take all 4 of them down, and then the actual fight starts. This is not a fight where you take a boss down. You actually need to heal him up. This is very different from a lot of the other boss mechanics, of course. And what you probably notice here is that we switched out our rogue for a warlock. The rogue, I think, had to leave or wanted to leave, but there was a warlock here that came in for the last boss only, which is a really good thing, because the warlock is great at multi-dotting, and you'll see him do an enormous amount of damage, which was very welcome. I don't think that with the rogue it would have been as easy as what we got here, and we did take this guy down, or brought him back up on our first attempt here. So we're still, of course, doing the mobs that come out first. We'll take a look at the mechanics when all of that starts. Yeah, that was my first Mythic experience, being level 330, item level 330 at that point. I felt like it was doable, but if you go in there with like only 320 or even lower than that, you will probably suffer from lack of DPS, lack of healing, lack of tanking capabilities, and things like that. So I think that 325 to 330, if everyone is at that item level, that's when you'll be pretty comfortable in this 0 tier mythic, in the easiest mythics to do. So here we go, phase 1, 4 Hoodoo Hexers that try to keep the boss under control. And then we've got the Hard Guardian, which is what I meant as well. You get 2 Hard Guardians in the mobs towards the boss. He does a lot of damage, so you do want to take that guy down pretty quickly. And I think a difference from heroics and normals is that you also get these plague doctors here, which I think at some point are going to summon some sort of dangerous frogs or something like that. So definitely plenty more mobs for you to take care of, but you can tell there the warlock is doing lots of damage, just multi-dotting everything, and he's slowly going to help us whittle down all of those hexers, with giving us the ability to just focus on single target DPS on the other annoying guys, and just doing this as quickly and efficiently as possible. Once all of these hexers are down, you can then and I took a lot of damage there all of a sudden. Not sure what that's from. Still don't know. But then, of course, you can try to heal. Oops. So there comes a Plague Doctor all of a sudden. I think at this point, yeah, there you go. You can try to heal the boss. I unfortunately am disoriented. And there come those Plague Toads, which you don't want to touch you because they'll do a hell of a lot of damage. And I think that they sort of drop a poison field or something like that. That does a hell of a lot of damage. So after that again, Hexer's Heart Guardian comes out, who needs to be grabbed by the tank because he does do a lot of damage. And the rest of the team are basically responsible for taking everything down as quickly and efficiently as possible and keeping an eye on any damage that comes out. So here our healer is doing really well with the waves, I think. But sometimes it does get a little bit messy when you've got lots of frogs on the screen. I'm not even sure if you can slow them. Yeah, you can slow them down and probably stun them as well. I think it's pretty important to try to do that and then just destroy them as much as possible. Hexer back there is at low HP, so I'm trying to take him out as well. Plague Doctor trying to do Chain Lightning, and I don't interrupt it. Bit of a mistake. Next one. Alright, he goes down. Then we still have Hexer, and then another Plague Doctor back there. So it's really a bit of a race against time and a DPS check. You need to have enough DPS, both multi and single target, in order to get through this. Then there come the Toads, and blap, I get taken out. Luckily, I have Reincarnate, so I use that. And I'm not sure if I actually heal up there, but luckily the Toads are gone, so that's a good thing. I do finally heal up a little bit. Then we've got a Hexer using some more totems to try and stall these Toads, but I think as a ranged DPS, you mostly just want to make sure that you don't get hit by them. Just don't allow them to hit you or your healer, and try to take him down as quickly as possible as well. Another Plague Doctor, Hoodoo Hexer, and the Heart Guardian is still here. I get disoriented again for a bit. I think that was cleansed away by our healer. Heart Guardian needs to, yeah, he needs to go down, but luckily he's still on the tank, so that's good taunting from the tank. More bloody frogs coming out. Very annoying, Hexer, but luckily we do have that Warlock, I think, that just keeps dotting everything, including the Hexers, and so slowly we are whittling all of this down. And then I think I finally decide to join in on the healing, which I should have done quite a bit sooner. I think that would have helped quite a bit, but I'm also worried about like the dozen Toads that come out here. They are taken down quite effectively. I think mostly the mage there with his AoE damage. So I do think that this is an interesting comp. Mage Warlock for this fight, I think, will always help you out quite a little bit because of their AoE damage and their dotting capabilities, just to keep damage going on all of these targets, regardless of what the fight throws at you, whether it's all the little frogs or the Hexers or the Guardian, which then would mean that maybe my Elemental Shaman or something that does good single target DPS and can stick close to the tank is a good idea as well, of course. After that, when he's fully healed, he comes up. So you've got one final fight where you don't need to worry too much anymore about the healing. But you do, of course, need to stay alive. But we did feel like we were definitely finally in control of this fight. And yeah, that Warlock made a hell of a lot of difference. I think the fight would have looked quite differently if we were still trying to do it with the Rogue. And there we go. That was the Mythic succeeded. Thank you very much for watching, guys. And I'll see you all next time. Gloves, dat zijn leathergloves zeker.